The standard modern door is 6 feet 8 inches, sized for comfortable clearance above the tallest people in the normal distribution of human height, with room for hats and modest movement. It is an efficient design for the bodies it serves. In the working corridors of specific large civic and administrative buildings of the inheritance period, not the ceremonial entrances, the working corridors, door heights run consistently between 12 and 16 feet. There is no architectural need for 14-foot clearance in a government corridor. There is only one honest explanation for it. I want to begin with a standard. The standard door height in modern residential and commercial construction is 6 feet 8 inches, or approximately 2 meters. This standard is not arbitrary. It is derived from the human body. The standard door height is tall enough to comfortably accommodate the tallest individuals in the normal distribution of human height, with clearance for hats and modest head movement, in a doorframe whose height is not extravagant. The standard represents an efficient relationship between the human body and the architectural element. Enough height to be functional for virtually all users. Not so much height as to waste material and structural investment on clearance that nobody needs. The standard has been relatively stable across the modern period. Pre-modern doors vary more than modern ones, because the standardization that industrial production enables was not available to pre-modern craftsmen. But the range of pre-modern residential and commercial door heights is not dramatically different from the modern standard when you look at the buildings that were built for and by populations of normal stature. 6 to 7 feet for working doors in ordinary buildings. The ceremonial entrances of churches and government buildings are taller, but the ceremonial doors are not what I'm examining. The working doors, the doors that people used every day, those are consistently in the range of 6 to 7 feet. Except in the specific category of building I want to focus on. The large civic and administrative buildings of the inheritance period, built or officially built in the period 1750 to 1850, in specific cities across Europe and North America. In these buildings, in the working corridors that were never intended for ceremony, the door heights are inconsistent with the normal range of pre-modern door construction. Not slightly inconsistent, significantly inconsistent. Doors of 12 feet, 14 feet, 16 feet in working corridors, where the purpose of the door is simply to allow passage between spaces, where there is no ceremony, no display, no audience for whom the door's height might serve a communicative function. I have been measuring doors, not personally, not comprehensively, but through the documentation available in architectural surveys, conservation reports, building inspection records, and the measured drawings that architectural historians have produced for the buildings in question. The measured drawings are the most useful source because they provide precise dimensions rather than the approximate descriptions that narrative accounts give. And the precise dimensions from the measured drawings tell a consistent story. The working doors in the buildings I'm examining are in the range of 12 to 16 feet, with a median around 14 feet. 14 feet. What human body is a 14-foot door optimized for? The calculation is straightforward. A door height is typically designed to allow passage with comfortable clearance above the tallest users who will regularly use it. The standard 6'8" door is comfortable for users up to approximately 6 feet 2 or 3, with 5 or 6 inches of clearance for normal movement. Extrapolating the same clearance ratio to a 14-foot door gives an optimal user height of approximately 12 to 13 feet. A human being of 12 to 13 feet in height. Now, there are alternative explanations for tall working doors that don't require very large users. The transport of large objects, furniture, equipment, materials that need to pass through the door at their full height without disassembly. The use of the corridors by animals, horses or oxen used for the transport of heavy loads within large buildings. Ventilation requirements in pre-HVAC buildings, where ceiling height and door height both contributed to air circulation. These are all real functional considerations that can produce taller doors than pure human passage optimization would require. And I accept that these considerations apply to some of the tall working doors in the buildings I'm examining. But the object transport explanation requires the objects being transported to be larger than can be disassembled and reassembled. Furniture and equipment that cannot be moved through a 7-foot door without permanent damage or extreme difficulty. The records of the buildings in question do not show regular movement of objects of this scale through the working corridors. The animal use explanation requires the regular presence of large animals in interior spaces, which is documented in some buildings, stables, and carriage houses, but not in the administrative offices and governmental spaces where the oversized doors appear. The ventilation explanation requires the tall doors to be positioned in ways that maximize airflow, which is a specific architectural logic that doesn't correspond to the distribution of oversized doors in the buildings I'm examining. What does the distribution correspond to? The oversized doors appear consistently in specific categories of space: the administrative corridors, the offices, the working spaces where the building's primary function, governance, and administration was carried out. They don't appear in the service areas, the storage spaces, the mechanical areas, the parts of the building where object transport and animal use might provide functional justifications. The oversized doors are in the spaces where the building's users spent their working days, and the users whose working day required 14-foot door clearance were not ordinary government clerks. Let me connect this to the broader photographic evidence. Throughout these investigations, I have referenced the 19th century photographs that show individuals of extraordinary stature in formal official contexts, not circus contexts, not the showman contexts of the exhibition industry. Formal, official contexts, government buildings, administrative offices, formal portraits with the trappings of official position. These photographs exist. They are in collections. They show individuals whose height relative to the other people in the photographs and relative to the architectural elements visible in the background is significantly greater than normal human height. Significantly, not the 6'3" of a tall person, the 8, 9, 10 feet of a body that is built to a different scale. If these individuals existed, and the photographic evidence is too consistent to explain as systematic fabrication or systematic misidentification, then they were present in the official and administrative contexts of the pre-reset and early inheritance period. They were working in or passing through the large administrative buildings of that period. And the buildings they worked in were built in their working corridors and their administrative spaces with the door heights that their bodies required for comfortable passage. 14 feet is not extravagant for someone 9 feet tall. It is approximately the same proportional clearance that 6 feet 8 is for someone 6 feet tall, comfortable, built to the actual bodies of the actual users, not to ceremony, not to intimidation, to the practical requirement of people of a specific stature passing through doors on a daily basis in the course of their administrative work. When did those individuals stop being present in the administrative buildings? The photographic record, which I have examined across multiple investigations, shows individuals of extraordinary stature in official contexts through approximately the 1880s and 1890s, and then with the same abruptness that the newspaper reports of giant skeletal discoveries show, stops. After approximately 1900, the photographic record of official contexts shows no individuals of extraordinary stature. The buildings whose working corridors were built for those individuals remain. The individuals are gone from the photographs. The doors, 14 feet high in working corridors, where 14-foot clearance serves no ceremonial purpose, are still there, still measurable, still inconsistent with normal human stature, still waiting for someone to ask whose bodies they were built for. The measurement is the argument, not the theory, not the hypothesis, not the speculation. The measurement, 14 feet in a working corridor, has one honest explanation. The people who used that corridor were built to a scale that made 14 feet the functional equivalent of what 6 feet 8 is for us. The people are gone from the record. The doors are still there. And the doors remember exactly what the photographs, the newspaper reports, the skeletal discoveries, and the building codes that made it impossible to build new ones all point toward a population of significantly larger human beings who worked in the administrative buildings of the pre-reset civilization, and whose presence in those buildings is recorded permanently and precisely in the height of the doors that were built to accommodate them. If the 14-foot working corridor doors in the inheritance period civic buildings are the same proportional clearance as our 6-foot 8 doors, just sized for a different body, and if the photographic record of individuals of extraordinary stature in official contexts stops precisely around 1900, what happened to the people those doors were built for, and where did they go? Leave your answer in the comments, and share this with someone who has been in one of those buildings and never thought to measure the doors.